Hello, welcome back to another live discussion review of The Mandalorian. This week's episode was entitled The Believer, and it was directed by Nigerian director Rick Famuyiwa. I'm your host Michael, and as always, I'm joined by our illustrious co-host Matt. Before we get started, feel free to rate this video in whatever way you see fit. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification icon. And if you're feeling extra generous, go ahead and share us on your social media platform of choice. Heck, if you still have a MySpace for some reason, figure out a way to share us on there. So we're going to get into spoiler-free discussion first out of the gate here. Now, my overall opinions were, ultimately, this was a pretty good episode, in my opinion. I thought, as far as the penultimate episode was concerned, it was great. Wasn't super impressive, nothing like over the top amazing happened. There were a few things that I was really happy to see that we will brush on once we get into spoilers and when we start going through our scene by scene breakdown. But just overall it was good for a penultimate episode. It didn't go too far. It's obviously saving the best for last, and with any hope it's going to follow through on that, and we are going to get one hell of a finale. Over to you.
So I agree with you there. My general thoughts overall, non-spoiler, good episode. I enjoyed it. One thing I will say about most Mandalorian episodes is, and this is probably a good thing, at the end of it, I'm like, no, I want more. So in that sense, it did a really good job. For me, it was a middle ground episode. It wasn't my favorite. It wasn't one I thought, that was just filler. We got some good character development. We got reintroduced to a character I liked from season 1. In fact, the prison ship episode with Mayfeld in season 1 was one of my favorites. It was in my top 3. So to see Bill Burr again was really good. I thought the setup of where we see the character to him being reintroduced to Mando was good. And then the general flow of the episode, even though it was a shorter episode, had good pacing, good timing, excellent visual effects, great score as always with these shows, good interactions between our side characters, a very nice bit of background development of Mayfeld, and then ending with a really good finish that, as you said, sets up next week's finale and really left me wanting more. So
I'd like to just quickly, before we get into it, brush on what you just said there about the special effects. The special effects for a TV series are absolutely phenomenal. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a television series with special effects this good that this could be just a movie we're watching.
Well, I think we're getting spoiled these days. Like, I remember when Independence Day came out, 94. It was 96. Minds were blown by those visual effects, and some of them still stand up today. But it seems as we go on, effects are getting better and better and better. And just as a side note, I just want to say how easy it is for people now to make their effects. I saw somebody on YouTube take Rogue One's Grand Moff Tarkin, which was at the time thought of as being a pretty bad CGI character, and using deepfake technology, actually make it look better from their home than Lucasfilm could make. Yeah. So we are being spoiled with visual effects. Can people go over the top with the visual effects? Yes, they can. You end up with, best way to put it would be the Avengers Endgame fight scene at the end. There's so much going on, and it's that dark brown. It gets a bit messy to the point where if you're intentionally doing that to give the fog of war, that's great. But when it's not done intentionally like that, and it looks like a CGI mess, like Attack of the Clones, I think that's where they need a guy in the background to reel back the VFX team to just say, whoa, put the brakes on. And The Mandalorian has not so far done that. All the use of special effects have been to further the story and being very subtle and made what we're watching look extremely pretty. So
yeah, there hasn't been anything over the top. It's always been in service to the plot.
Yeah, there hasn't been what I want to hark back to again. There hasn't been Attack of the Clones scene yet.
Yeah, and
I hope we never have.
I want to point out as well that, just as a side note, that the overall aesthetic of this episode, especially the action set pieces, reminded me of the Battle of Scarif from Rogue One.
It was, and it's strange because the start of the episode started off very dark, dank, and dreary, and then we got introduced to this beautiful green, luscious forest planet. So the two contrasts were very well done.
Yeah, and that's something that I've really liked actually, and thought was stood out about this season as a whole. Like last season, we pretty much had desert planet, desert planet, desert planet. Space
Yeah,
station.
I think this year we've done desert planet, ice planet, or ice cave. It's not even like a dead planet. Like the Ahsoka episode was like a dead, burnt out forest planet. This green, luscious planet, a water planet. So they've been very good at showing us that the universe is bigger than just Tatooine.
The last episode was like a mountainscape, right? It's been very varying so far in what we see.
Yeah, and they've done a very good job with that, and it does give the Star Wars universe a sense of being way bigger than what we're generally used to. In the movies, you've basically got the prequels. You've got Coruscant, Tatooine, and then Camino, and then you. Well, no, I mean in the prequels, and then you're back to another desert planet in Geonosis, and then in the originals, we obviously they were restricted by effects back then, but you don't see many planets there. You see Endor, Hoth, and Tatooine.
My main problem with the Star Wars universe...
You see Alderaan for a split second.
Yeah. My main problem with the Star Wars universe is that all the planets seem to all have one ecosystem. So
yeah, that is a little weird. Yeah, there's no north and south northern and southern hemispheres, tropics, and
we'll take Tatooine for instance. Tatooine should be a planet that you can't live on. There should be no oxygen because there's no oceans.
But they have the moisture evaporators, so they evaporate the moisture to generate the oxygen.
Yeah, that's an explanation, but it's still done. It still probably isn't realistic.
I think though, back in the day when they were making these movies, because when you go to Tatooine, you are focused on the area of Mos Eisley. You don't really know what's on the other side of the planet. So,
well, see, that's what I always thought. I always thought there was a one big ocean that, like Tatooine, for instance, had been going through a climate crisis for centuries and centuries, and the last remaining bastion of an ocean still existed on one side of the planet, and everywhere else they had to use moisture evaporators to get water out of the ground. Anyway,
but yeah, it's sand. I don't like sand. It's coarse. It gets everywhere. Anyway, yeah, back to the episode. Though I think, as you say, the Mandalorian's done a really good job this season of bouncing to different places, and we see that throughout this episode. In especially the way the scenes are shot, like you said. Like I said, it's dark and dreary at the beginning, then a beautiful, vibrant forest planet, and then towards the end, it gets the tones change to tell us something important's happening. This is the big bad kind of thing. So overall, yeah, general thoughts were it was a fun episode, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, oh yeah. To be clear, just us saying that it's just good, that it's just fine, nothing special, doesn't necessarily mean that we dislike it. That's something.
It didn't blow my mind like when we saw Ahsoka for the first time and she lights the lightsabers as she did in Clone Wars and Rebels.
That's also because you know Ahsoka as a character from Rebels and Clone Wars.
True.
If you don't watch those shows, her introduction is literally an introduction for most people. So
yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to spoilers then. Just like we did last week, we're going to do a scene by scene breakdown. And we're going to get into all the nitty gritty and go over all the Easter eggs and cool things that happened and give you an outline of the story. So the episode is, as I mentioned earlier, is called The Believer. I still haven't figured out what that necessarily means in reference to the episode itself. But
I can interject there if you want.
We'll get into that when we get to that point where you figured that out. So it opens up on a New Republic planet, a penal colony. I forget the name of the planet. That's my bad. I should have wrote it down in my footnotes. Anyone, if you're watching and you know the answer, feel free to tell me in the comments. But either way, we're generic penal colony planet. That's what it's called. The whole planet is a penal colony, and we're reintroduced to the character of Mayfeld, who's played by Bill Burr. He was in the season 1 episode where they go to that New Republic prison to break out the Twi'lek guy. And he's given a designation by his droid prison guard 34667. 34667, prisoner 34667. It's very almost reminiscent of Les Mis, prisoner 24601. But I'll never forget that number because
as long as Bill Burr don't start singing.
Yeah, that droid says that number so many times in the first 3 minutes of this episode. I think I went to sleep dreaming about that number. So yeah, we're reintroduced to him, and we get this really interesting robot prison guard, which I wanted to get into a quick discussion about that with you, because I thought that the droid itself gave me almost Alan Tudyk Imperial droid vibes. Very similar. Almost like they're saying, well, the Imperials had their mean, badass, kick-ass prison guard droids. Well, the New Republic's in charge now, and they're no better. They've just replaced them with their own variant. What did you think of that?
Wasn't the prison guard droid on the prison planet the same as the droids from the prison ship from Bill Burr's episode in season 1? I think it was.
Are they the exact same models?
I think so. Yeah.
Well, either way, it was interesting to see them again.
From the distance where they walked in with their triangular shaped head and the visor, I had a very Breen feeling about them from Star Trek. The characters that stole the Princess Leia costume and turned it into an alien race in Star Trek. That's what, when it was blurred out in the background, that's the first image that popped up into my head, and then obviously you get to see him better. And I do think he was the robot from the prison ship episode that Bill Burr was in. But you could tell, like we were saying in the non-spoiler part, that this was a dark, dank, dour prison planet, which showed that even in the New Republic, you've got somewhere to put prisoners. And obviously the New Republic's going to have tons of Imperials from the Empire, and they've got to put them somewhere. So we saw that the New Republic isn't this utopian society. They still have crooks and criminals and war criminals and soldiers that they have to put somewhere. And that's the kind of feeling I got from this episode, that they were breaking down, I believe, all the old Imperial TIE fighters. So at least we know they're in the New Republic's into recycling, which is universe friendly, obviously. But I did get the feeling that Mayfeld had been there a lot, and he was just like, just leave me alone, let me do my thing. Because at first he's like, what do you want?
So the name of the planet is Carthon. It's the New Republic correctional facility on Carthon Chop Fields.
Yeah.
I love the way they come up with names in the Star Wars universe.
Because they made out that Mayfield was there because he killed an Imperial, a New Republic officer, didn't he?
Mayfeld. No.
Mayfeld, sorry. Mayfeld, not Mayfield. Mayfield's near us. Yeah, I think they make out that Mayfeld killed an Imperial officer, but if I remember rightly, it was the Twi'lek female that killed him. She throws
Natalia Tena.
Yeah, she throws a knife in when they're in the standoff in season 1, when they're in the control room.
Yeah, you see that in the previously on.
In the previous, so we know that Mayfeld is on this prison planet, obviously because of the murder of the New Republic. So yeah, I liked how that planet looked. I liked how it felt. Again, Bill Burr was one of my favorite actors from season 1 when he played Mayfeld, and it was good to see him again. And obviously, what he gets called over by the droid and introduced to Marshal Doom.
I have to say as well that he does a really good job of portraying the character in the universe, considering that usually when you bring a comedian into a role in a TV series, they don't usually do a great job of stepping outside of their comedian persona.
Yeah, or they're playing a comedy character, which he isn't.
No. He still has the comedic timing for delivering his lines, which works to his effect. But an example would be the use of Tig Notaro in Star Trek Discovery. The character of Jet Reno that she plays is a good character, but she's basically just playing herself.
Yeah.
She's not really acting. She's just doing her comedy bit.
Well, like you said with Bill Burr's timing, though, when he's introduced and Boba Fett comes down the ramp and he's like, it's the shocked look on his face, and he drops the line, "Oh, I thought you were someone else." That was great timing.
And then immediately Mando walks down
the ramp
and is like, "Oh shit!" So yeah,
Yeah.
so that's a good time to move on. So basically, what we find out that Cara Dune has come and released him into her custody, and there's one final dig from the prison droid where he pulls out his little electro nightstick and he's like, "You better go with Cara Dune or else." I mean, he doesn't say it that way, but it's essentially
Pretty much, yeah.
And so
Never trust droids. Never trust droids.
and so they meet up with Mando and company. You've got Boba Fett standing outside Slave One with Fennec, and I might say looking pretty dapper after a touch of paint on his Mandalorian armor.
That's a massive improvement from what it did look like.
It looks super slick. It looks even better than it did in the original Star Wars movies.
It's got to make you ask though, where did he get the paint? Did he go to like Star Wars Universal Home Depot?
Space Home Hardware.
And he could have painted it any other color as well, and he decided to go OG. I like that as well.
Why not?
Great, he could have gone silver like his dad's.
If it ain't broke, why fix it?
Because Django's armor looks very similar to Mando's.
Well, it's hinted it's the exact same armor, right? So
yeah,
he's obviously chosen that paint job for a reason. And you know what? I don't care if we never find out why. It's just cool that.
I love the fact that he left the dent in the helmet though. The attention to detail of the little dent in the helmet was.
It's Beskar though. They would need a Mandalorian.
A smell, yeah, a Mandalorian smell. Yeah.
So they all head on board Slave One. Slave One takes off, and they're all inside getting ready to go over the planet. And we get kind of a cool set design detail with the interior of Slave One, where you find out that the decks of the ship are on this gimbal platform. Because if you think about it, Slave One lands on its back and takes off, and then flies vertically. And I thought that was just a super cool little detail that there's no consequence whatsoever on the plot or the story, but it's just really cool to see, like, because when you think about it, that's obviously how it has to work, right? Especially in atmosphere.
Yeah, but that's one thing that this show does really well, and Filoni and Favreau have done perfect. Is just the tiny little details and throwbacks. Because I think the only other time we've seen inside Slave One is when Django's got young Boba sat and they're being chased by Obi-Wan, and we see the cockpit. We don't see the rest of the ship, so we all knew that that's how it'd have to work, a gimbal like that. But to actually see it, it's just a tiny little detail that they didn't need to put in, but it works perfectly with just little throwbacks and world building.
It shows like the care and attention we're getting from the crew, the people involved in making the show. And it's given what we're going to be discussing on the podcast today, that's it's quite a stark contrast between the care and attention that's put into some movies that we won't name right now, as opposed to this TV show and the cartoon series. It's night and day almost.
Well, and again, I think that's down to Filoni and Favreau. They loved the source material so much that to them putting that tiny little bit of extra effort in is an extra effort. It's just how I don't see those two treating Star Wars any differently.
But it also has to beg the question. The director of this episode, Rick Famuyiwa, he also wrote it. So like they're obviously doing a great job of bringing in the right people to direct these episodes as well.
Directors that love Star Wars.
Yeah. Or maybe just directors who love their film craft.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to love Star Wars
That's true.
to be a good Star Wars director. But if you love Star Wars, it's an asset. But first and foremost, you just have to love directing and love filmmaking and have that level of integrity behind your filmmaking. So anyway, moving on. So they're discussing their plan, and what they basically come and picked up Mayfeld, as we found out at the end of last episode, because Mayfeld was a former Imperial soldier, and they want to use him to try to find a way to get hold of Gideon, find out where Gideon's cruiser is. Which, if you think about it, it's a little bit weird, because like how do you track a spaceship that can fly from one end of the galaxy to another in hours? But
transponder.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, sure. And
space transponder.
And their plan just so happens to bring them to this Imperial base on a planet called Morak, which is the planet we were discussing earlier, the like lush jungle sort of planet. and they realize that they have to get into this Imperial base somehow. And Mayfeld lets them know that once they get in, they need to basically reveal their face in order to access the information that they're after. So Mando, being Mando, is like, I'm not revealing my face, but they hatch a plan that allows them to find a way into the base without him having to reveal his face. So they commandeer this transport, which is transporting a MacGuffin called.
I just want to say on that aspect though, isn't it funny how all uniforms fit everybody?
Well, yeah, it's a TV. Well, not just TV, but a TV and film trope.
Like I race cars, so I have a helmet that fits my head. Like, what happens if that guy had a big head or a small head and the helmet was just bobbling around?
Maybe they had spares in the back. They had
I
a large and a small and a medium and a 2XL.
Yeah, and when they do the carjacking, let's call it, they do it at the start. They do it at the start of the tunnel, and obviously this transport has a timeline that it's got to be on to beat up the guys, pull them out, strip them naked, put on their outfits, and then get back in. No one goes, "Why are you taking so long?"
Oh, you could have just. We had a flat or something. We broke down on the side of the road.
It was an interesting way of keeping Mando's face hidden, because I think we found out that it's not the fact that he's got to keep his helmet on; he just can't show his face to anyone except his family. For that sect of Mandalorians cannot show their faces to anyone except their family.
After this episode, I'm starting to get the impression that it's a little bit more. Not just this episode, actually, this whole season. There's a little more to it. There's more of kind of a personal conflict going on with Din, that he refuses to show his face himself. There's some trauma going on in there that's preventing him.
Maybe.
Well, I think it's obviously he's using the creed as an excuse to not show his face, because we found out from Bo-Katan that whole creed is just nobody.
It's like extremists.
Exactly, nobody.
Yeah, because I think in the first episode we find out that he only takes his helmet off. So like he takes his helmet off to eat, to drink, but he doesn't do it in front of others.
Yeah.
So I think that sect of Mandalorians can only do it either probably in front of their families, because I'm sure he's probably because we see he doesn't take his helmet off in front of Grogu when he's drinking in this season. He just lifts it up.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you think there's only them two on the ship, he'd just take his helmet off.
Definitely.
I think we'll find more out about it.
Might be a big reveal eventually in one of the seasons where Grogu finally gets to see the face of his protector.
Yeah.
So anyway, moving on. They commandeer the Imperial transport, and it's transporting a MacGuffin item called Ridium, which
highly explosive.
That's why it's a MacGuffin. It's so that there's added tension. It's like, oh yeah, we don't want to blow this thing up. If we drive too fast or overheat the thing, it's going to explode. And before we get to the action set piece, there is a really nice, poignant moment, which to me, I almost feel like is the climax of the theme of this episode. Where Mayfield and Mando have this discussion. Well, it's not really a discussion; it's kind of a one-sided discussion, where Mayfield is urging to Mando that there's no difference between the two of them. Just because he was an Imperial and he's a Mandalorian, and Cara Dune was a rebel, they're all basically different shades of grey, and that's how the universe works in Mayfield's mind, right? He says, "Look," because we even have that moment where they see the civilians on the road, and he makes the point that somewhere someone's getting trod on, right?
Well, I think what they're trying to build on there is Star Wars has been very black and white, Jedi, Sith, good, evil, whereas we actually know in real life that wars are fought. And both sides think they're right, and no one is actually just downright evil in most conflicts. Now, obviously, in history, there have been cases of people who were just downright evil, like SS, but most grunts, most foot soldiers are basically doing as they're told to just get through, especially if they were conscripted, like I'm guessing the Empire did. They conscripted people. And I think that's what Mayfield's trying to get across to Din is, it isn't just black and white. The Empire isn't just bad. The New Republic isn't just good. It's all grey. It's all just a wash. like he says, no matter who's in charge, someone's always getting trodden on, and that's very true to real life.
And it all culminates with him saying basically saying point blank to Mando, we're the same, you and I. We're all the same. And Mando retorts with the cliche, "You and I are nothing alike."
And yet, to me, I believe they are.
So we then at that point we move on now to the action set piece. We get a couple of the other transports who are ahead of them start getting attacked and getting destroyed. You see explosions in the distance, which again, talking about the special effects, those explosions looked so good. And
they did, but there is something I didn't. This is one part of the episode I didn't like.
Well, so they start getting attacked by pirates. Just to throw away line, oh, it's pirates. And funnily enough, these aliens who are the pirates, the only time I've ever seen them is one of the Jedi who comes to arrest Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith. He's one of the Jedi who gets instantly killed. It's not Kit Fisto who gets a couple of strikes in, but it's one of the other ones.
The one who dies dramatically.
Like, that's what these aliens are. Because I was like, we've seen these guys before. I thought for a second, are they Twi'leks? But no, and then...
No, I thought the same. So I'll tell you why I didn't like it. The actual set piece itself was very well filmed, and it was very visually, like you say, the effects were awesome. But the one thing that went through my mind was, if these transports were so easy to blow up and they get blown up so often, why haven't they got an escort? Why aren't there TIE fighters flying along? It just seemed to just come out of nowhere that these transports all of a sudden get blown up all the time. It's not a very good place to have a refinery if all your ore gets blown up before it gets to the refinery.
Reasons.
That was because reasons. That was the one thing that I really didn't like about this. To me, the set piece was really good, as we said, all the way to the end where the TIE fighters do show up and kill them. I liked Mando kicking ass because the fight sequences are always good. But that just stuck in my mind that like the 1-2 transports just get blown up in front of you.
But you see, this is where I think we had this discussion last week about him forgetting to put his jetpack on again in that one moment. This is where I start to have I have a bit of a tussle with people when they're talking about plot holes and plot conveniences, plot contrivances. Realistically, it doesn't cause any problems. It allows the plot to happen, right? And yes, it might be a little bit lazy, but it's not that egregious, right? Maybe because all you have to do in order to make something not a plot hole is find one way to explain it away. And if that way to explain it away, then you can, if you ask another question, that raises more questions, and then you can explain those away. The more questions you have to ask, the more tiers of questioning and explanation you have to go through, the more of a contrivance it is. But to me, I guess the best thing I could say is the Empire, they're the remnants. They're undermanned. Maybe these 2 TIE fighters who show up in the end were on the way, and they're like, just hold in there until we get there, and they had no choice but to.
I understand that. I just was thinking though that if it was so easily to blow them up, then they would have had better protection, because it's only the 2 drivers and there's no other stormtroopers on board or anything.
Only fight with what you have.
That is true, but the ending of that sequence was really good because it actually humanized the remnants of the Empire, where you've got the soldiers cheering and they're happy that the guys have got in. It's something that you don't see very often from an Empire point of view.
Well, yeah, it basically shows us again this theme that it's not all black and white. And but just before we move on to that, though, I did want to just point out that I thought the choreography of the sort of like Wild West train style fight scene was pretty cool. Really enjoyed a lot of the fighting that Mando was involved in, throwing that spear, and then that finally at the end where he's like, he gets up again and he realizes he's gonna have to keep fighting, but then the TIE fighters come in and save the day.
That was very good though. The potential of fight, it felt like fighting on top of a train from the Wild West.
Oh yeah,
that was really well done.
Always leaning into these Wild West tropes, like trying to really land home that whole idea that this is a space western. So yes,
a western.
A western.
A spwestern. Yeah. This is a spwestern.
Has anybody ever coined that phrase before?
Hashtag coin phrase. I got that one first. Spwestern.
Hashtag
It's gonna catch on.
I'm no kidding. I'm going to put that
hashtag spwestern
once we're done. So,
All right.
so they get to the Imperial base, and yes, as you say, everybody's like cheering them, and you can see this camaraderie between all these soldiers, and they're all ecstatic that this Ridium has arrived, and they get out of the transport and start looking for this terminal where they can track the transponder of Gideon's ship. And so Mayfeld, he finds one. He walks into this almost like cafeteria style area, ready to go over, and he sees out of the corner of his eye like an Imperial officer in the room. Turns round, goes up to Mando and says, "Look, I can't do it. I recognize this guy. It's his old commanding officer." And I didn't quite get the name. I think it was Valen Hess.
Oh, something like that, yeah.
Well, for the purposes of this review, we're going to call him Hess for now, or the Imperial commander. And so Mando's like, "Well, no, you got to do it. You got to do it." And he's like, "I can't. He'll recognize me." And so Mando decides, "I'm going to do it." And in order to do it, he has to take his helmet off.
So, I said there's a very few parts that I didn't like from this. This was one of them. It felt like a very contrived, we got to see Pedro Pascal's face once a season thing. Like at the end of last season where he takes off his helmet, it's actually quite pertinent to him doing it, because if he doesn't, he's going to die. And then ID-11 says, "Well, I'm not alive, so I could see your face." So he takes it off and he saves him. It seems like they threw this part just in there so that we could see Pedro Pascal's face. That's to me how it felt, and I didn't quite like it. I'm just reading.
Let me interject real quick, because you said in the first season it was very pertinent, or else he'll die.
Yeah.
I'll throw back at you, though. This was very pertinent, as was set up, the whole reason he's doing it. Because if he didn't, he wouldn't be able to get the transponder information to save Grogu. So what's the difference?
Again, it just felt like it was thrown in there. It didn't feel like it was earned, whereas in season one...
I gave you...
because Bill Mayfield could have just easily gone in there, because as we find out, literally a few seconds later, Mayfield comes in anyway.
But why didn't Mayfield, though?
Because he thinks he's going to get recognized.
Exactly. So he has a reason for not wanting to do it. So Mando goes to do it, has to reveal his face, and then it doesn't work out either way. So Mayfield has to intervene. That's good. That's good right there. And then you also get this really interesting dynamic between Mayfield and Din now, because Din can't just freak out in this situation, right? He has to keep his cool. So I don't know. I didn't think it was a contrivance. I thought it was poignant. But
so
what were you going to say?
I wanted to get back to the point of the name of the episode, and this is where it got me with the conversation in the truck before they get to the...
Yeah, so we're going back.
Yeah, because I just remembered it. So the episode's called The Believer. There's a part where Mayfield says, if you're born on Mandalore, you believe one thing. If you're born on Alderaan, you believe another. And that's now going back to the point of we're saying the grey area, the Empire is not just evil and the Republic's not just good, is you are a believer based on where you are born.
Yeah, I like that. That's cool.
We're Huddersfield Town fans because we grew up in Huddersfield. We're Edmonton Oilers fans because we moved to Edmonton. If Mum and Dad had decided to go to Calgary, we'd have ended up being Flames fans. So you being a believer in something, Mayfield's pointing out that he was a Empire believer because of where he was brought up, and that's where I'm getting the believer tagline for the episode is. Yeah. It's to help with the narrative that we've talked about in this episode of it's not just black and white; it is shades of grey.
I agree. I like that. That's good. Good catch.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to where we were. So now we've got this scene where we've got Din Djarin's face revealed, and he's trying to get the coordinates, and he gets the coordinates, but just before he can get out of there, the CEO, Valen Hess, calls out, "Trooper," and you're like, oh no, and he comes over to check in on him, and try to get it. He wants his TK number, which is like his FN number for like Finn.
Well, TK421. Why are you not at your post?
Well, no, but just for anybody who might not know. He doesn't know what that means. He has no idea. And then, so as we just discussed, Mayfeld has no choice now but to come forward, reveal himself, and save the day. Comes up, makes up a TK number, and does the whole cliche of, oh yeah, no, he's my commanding officer, and there's a reason why he's acting.
I liked his reason he brought up that he's a little deaf.
He's hard of hearing, yeah, and he's like, "What's your name, trooper?" And I love the line. We just call him all Brown Eyes, because it's like, in my opinion, it's like a little jab at him for not, because he's like, oh, I've finally seen your face,
and I can see what color your eyes are.
Yeah. And funnily enough, it tricks Hess, and he falls for it. And we keep getting all these little fake outs though, because they try to walk away, and he's like, "I didn't dismiss you yet." But we're like, "Oh no, what's he gonna do?" And then he's like, "Come on, let's go have a drink."
Then we go the let's have a drink, creepiest let's have a drink I've seen in a long time. It's so uncomfortable.
This guy is a walking cliche. Like, you just know, like, this guy has done some horrible, heinous things. Just the way he's talking and behaving, you're like, man, could they make this man any more evil? Talk about grey area and black and white. This guy was basically short of having a little mustache twisting moment.
Yes,
this guy was clearly a bad guy, and so we have a discussion now when they sit down to have this drink.
we both did the mustache twirl at the perfect time.
Yeah. So they sit down with him to have a drink, and they start thinking about what to have a toast to. And Mayfeld brings up Operation Cinder, which you won't have known what that was.
No, because I've not played Battlefield.
To any fans of Star Wars video games, in Battlefront 2 campaign, you find out about Operation Cinder. And we were talking about this in last week's episode, about how it was a plan, like Order 66, for the Empire to essentially go around all of its territory and eliminate all signs of the Emperor and the Emperor's plans and the Empire's plans. And so what they ended up having to do during Operation Cinder was basically kill their own, attack their own people. And so obviously you find out Mayfeld brings this up because he's got some deep wounds in his relationship with his commanding officer. And lo and behold, go on.
For a stand-up comic, I thought his acting in this scene was excellent. Yeah, you really got the sense of hatred that he had for this officer and the trauma and stress that he'd gone through from losing his comrades at that battle. It was exceptionally done, even to the point where
a feeling of unpredictability almost as well that he conveyed.
Well, there was only one person that knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Mando looks over at Din, and Din's just like shakes his head.
Mando looks over at Din.
I don't know. Looks over at himself. Mayfield looks at Mando, and Mando does the head shake to say, Mayfeld. I keep saying Mayfield. Like Mayfeld. Blufeld. He looks over at me, and Mando's like, no, don't do it. Yeah. And
see,
then
I didn't think that though. This goes to show, like, you watch a show in your own way, especially the first time you watch it. Because I watched it the second time, and obviously I was like, okay, I get it now. I actually thought Mayfeld was basically putting himself in he's putting his life at risk. He was gonna reveal who he was and fuck everything up, and Hess was gonna kill him. I actually thought Mayfeld doing it now. I thought Mayfeld was gonna die in this.
Oh no! I as soon as he looks over at Mando does the head shake. I knew what was coming. I'm like, oh, it's gonna kick off.
And so yeah, Mayfeld basically uses this opportunity to get his revenge, and he pulls his blaster out and he annihilates this Valen Hess guy. He's dead. He's done. He's dinner for the worms. And there's just this really cool little moment where they look at each other. And like, you could tell that obviously Mando wants to bitch him out, but they can't, because another Imperial stands up to fire, and then a battle starts.
Well, at that point, again, now go back to the director again. Excellent timing, because there was enough to really say that. Because obviously, no Imperial in this base expected another Imperial to shoot a guy at the table. So it's the timing's perfect for that little bit of shock. Din and Mayfeld to look at each other and say, oh, so we're fighting our way out of this, and get up and start shooting people. The timing was perfect.
Yeah,
Excellent
I
direction.
really want to look into Rick Famuyiwa's filmography because I want to see what else he's done. Because I think that the biggest outstanding moments of this film are definitely in the directorial choices of this episode. So I'm going to do a lot of research into this guy. I have to see what else he's done because I really enjoyed watching his craft. And so we get a fight. They're obviously now they've revealed who they are. They have to get out of there. They've got to have to shoot their way out of there. And Mando turns around, and before he sees a way out, but before he can have a chance to act upon it, Mayfeld picks up the Imperial helmet that he's wearing and hands it to him. And there's an understanding between them. And he says, "I never saw your face." And I thought that was cool. I really liked that.
That was a real. I like that point as well.
Good character development right there. And so they fight their way out. They head out onto a ledge, and you get a few moments where I was expecting a Wilhelm scream, and not once.
Where they're falling off into the dam.
And not. But the funny thing was, is the actual screaming itself was even worse. It was kind of funny. I almost chuckled a little bit, but.
I liked also the sharpshooting and saving them from the ridge from Kara and Fennec. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
We find out that Kara and Fennec, because obviously they've had nothing to do this episode, are hanging out up top with snipers just in case all shit breaks loose. And so, sorry, I got a little bit behind on my notes here. I forgot to turn the page. So the fighting ensues, and they get out up onto the top of the roof where Fett comes in to save the day in Slave One. And as Slave One's moving away, we have Mayfeld gets a sniper of his own. And this was actually set up earlier. There was a thermal detonator planted on the Iridium transport by one of the pirates that didn't get detonated. And Mayfeld...
I don't even think it was that.
Isn't that what it was?
No, I think Mayfield knows that because if you notice it... Well, the doors are primed open. That was set up earlier because if they'd put a thermal detonator in there, it'd probably go off. But Mando throws it away, but the doors are still open, and he just shoots the canister.
Yeah, so he just knows where to shoot.
He knows that it would.
Yeah,
kaboom!
So he shoots, blows up the Iridium, destroying part of the Imperial base, which is pretty cool. Again, this episode really shines.
I loved Gina's face, that acting as well when he does that.
Yeah.
Her acting there, her look on her face is pretty good.
Mm-hmm. And so we get the escape, which has a little call out, a little shout out to one of the prequel episodes.
Best throwback to one of the best parts in the prequel episodes.
Well, I have to say, yeah, if you're going to reference the Attack of the Clones, that's how you do it. So as Slave One is flying away, they've got TIE fighters like hard on their tail, and what does he do? He drops one of the sonic charges.
As soon as he did it, I got on the remote to crank up the volume on the TV,
and it was just so effective as well. Even if it wasn't an Easter egg, right? It was just such an effective moment to bookend the whole episode. So that's pretty much it for the meat of the episode. We start to wrap up, have the end of the episode where we get away from the Imperial base, and we have a parting of ways, as it were, between Mando and Kara and Mayfeld, where Mayfeld's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go back to prison, right?" And they pull the whole, "It's a shame he died, right? Yeah, it's a shame Mayfeld didn't survive." And he's like, "What does this mean? I can go?" And Mando's like, "Yeah, get out of here."
Well, his comic timing comes in really good on this scene as well.
Oh yeah,
because he's like, he walks away, and then turns around, like, "Are you sure?"
Yeah,
so I like that,
and I'm glad that they were able to really develop this character into a likable character, because he was basically a villain of the week in season 1,
but I think that episode was so loved, and people loved him in that. That's why they brought him back for this. And now they've released him. He's now available for other quests.
Mm-hmm. And then we end with a really effective and, in my opinion, a little bit of a spine-tingling moment where Mando...
Badass moment.
Yeah, sends a transmission to Gideon, and he says basically word for word the exact same things to Gideon that Gideon said to Mando in the season finale of episode 1. I don't know it word for word. You might know it better than me, but it's something along the lines of, "You have something that I want, something that belongs to me, something I care
So
about."
I'm just looking over you now. He goes, you have something I want. You may think you have some idea of what you are in possession of, but you do not. Soon he will be back with me. And when Gideon throws that down at the end of season 1, I can't remember. I always forget the actor's name. He's a brilliant actor. He lays that down, and it's very menacing. And it's even more menacing when Mando throws it back in his face. That was brilliant. And again, Moff Gideon's reaction to it is very well acted. Like
Giancarlo Esposito.
Esposito, that's the one. Yeah, because if Gideon was like the typical what you call mustache twirling bad guy, he would be so full of his own hubris he wouldn't even take that as a threat. But Esposito's acting of it actually does can like realize the gravity of the situation.
Yeah. And me personally, we'll probably get into this when we do our theories and our predictions at the end. But I honestly think it's starting to posture Moff Gideon up to be a early series villain who might within the next couple of seasons actually meet his end. And as the show goes on, we start to develop more villains and find out that there's someone else above Gideon and so on.
It's a bigger and wider web of bad guys.
A bigger bad, yeah. There's always a bigger fish. So I want to end here now. That's pretty much the episode, but I'd like to end with something that we didn't do last week, but we're just making this up as we go along. But I feel like as we're doing these live discussion reviews of TV shows that we like, we should finish with a rating. What we thought, what we rated out of 10, and as we start to get more viewers and more engagements in the chat, people can join along with us, and you can tell us what your
out of 10 or 5.
Well, let's do it out of the
how many 10 blasters. 10 blasters. How many blasters does it get? I say this one gets 7.5 blasters.
How do you have a half a blast?
No, the actual half the gun, it's only the handle. You don't get the top bit.
Oh, okay, sure.
7.5.
You're giving it 7.5 out of 10?
It had parts that I really liked. It was visual. It was awesome from start to finish. But there were just a little few pieces there and there that made me think, meh. I don't like that.
It's more of a matter of things bringing it down than it lacking things to elevate it.
Oh, 100%. Like, to take it from a 7.5 up closer towards a 10, you would have had Mando not show his face, and the ease at which they blew up the other two transports. They should have made it a bit harder, but 7.5. It flowed really well, good pacing, excellent visuals, great acting, and it progressed the story a little. I know a lot of people. Some of the biggest criticisms of The Mandalorian is they have these so-called filler episodes. Well, aren't all episodes filler? So I don't like that term. To me, I like the fact that we have a series that doesn't have to have a constant running storyline. Well, I love the fact that
it's interesting too, because people could say things like, "Oh, it didn't advance the plot," but in my opinion, it did advance the plot.
100% advance the plot because now Mando knows where Gideon is.
But that to me is why the writing is so good, because it's so simple. We didn't need any plot developments throughout the whole episode. All we needed was the character development between Mayfeld and Mando, and also the set pieces, the action set pieces, so that when we get to the epilogue of the episode, that's where the advancement is.
Well, that's what I think people have been spoilt with over the last few years, where they're just being crammed everything, and the plot's always progressing, and there's some. They forgot that some of the best stories out there are the simplest stories, and you don't need all this exposition and shit smashed down your throat. And that's what I like about The Mandalorian. This season, to me, has had one filler episode, which was the Ice Planet egg lady, lizard lady with her eggs. That was the only real filler where nothing particularly happened. But the rest of them all slowly build the plot up, like we had back when we were kids and we watched shows. It got more and more, and then it crescendoed for your finale, and then you had to wait for next. Then you had to wait for next season. Yeah, so I'm loving the way that they're doing this. And yeah, so 7.5 for me. How about you?
Well, okay, so I don't agree with you on the things that bogged it down at all, but I'm kind of in the same score range. So just to be different, I'll give it a 7.65.
Blasters. What part of the blaster is the 6.5?
A 7.7.
So you've got the handle and you've got half the barrel.
I'm gonna give it a 7.7 because
Okay.
to me, there was no real problems with it. But it's not like if you're gonna rate something 8 and above, then we're getting to the points where this is like outstanding Emmy-worthy
Yeah.
television. So I'm not gonna. It's not. It didn't hit the heights of an 8, but it also didn't. It didn't drop below a 7.5 for me. There was no real problems with it in my eyes. It was just a really good, solid 7.7.
Cool. So where do you think we're ending up then?
Okay, well, after this episode, with as we say, very little development in the overarching story, I don't know, because all the predictions I had from last week still apply. They're still
Do you want to do some theory crafting?
well. Again, though, all of the theories that I had from last week pretty much carry over now to the finale here. But that being said, I have changed my mind a little bit. I don't think we're gonna get a Jedi anymore.
And honestly, I was along that thought anyway. I think, like I said, I think I said it last week. I think we might get a hint of who the Jedi Grogu reached out to. I don't think we'll get to see him. And I've looked at some of the. I don't think it's that dude out of that computer game. I think people who think it's him is they're
That
smoking
would be
something.
really obscure if it was. Let's put it
Yeah,
that way.
I think because we've had Ahsoka this season, I'm 100%. I can't say 100% because then I'd know. I'm 90% sure that the hint will be towards Ezra, which is awesome because I'm a massive fan of Rebels. I don't think we'll see him, but I think we'll get a hint. I think obviously my thoughts for the final season is it'll be a great showdown and all that, and Mando will get Grogu back. Or yeah, I think he'll get him back. I think we might have one of our main characters die. So someone like Kara or Fennec or maybe even Boba. I think one of them might get killed, and I think we'll get a hint at the Jedi that heard Grogu's reaching out.
So, do you want me to go full force here?
Oh, you're gonna go. Never go full force.
It's tinfoil hat time, guys.
God, no, I love the tinfoils.
So, I think Boba Fett will die.
Oh, you think so? You're on the same line that Fett might die.
So, the main reason, because a lot of people, the biggest complaint about Boba Fett in history was the way he went out. So, this is basically them retconning that, giving Boba Fett the out that he deserves. And he's had some great moments. He's been used effectively. And what better way to continue his legacy than to have Din Djarin become the new commander of Slave One? Given the Razor Crest has now been...
Oh, so you're saying that Fett doesn't go out by sacrificing himself as slave. He goes out on foot and inherits Slave One.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
I also think... I don't think any of the main cast are going to die from the good guys. I think Cara Dune's fine. I think Carl Weathers' character, who we keep saying we forget his name, but we stop doing we don't do the research.
I'm gonna call him Dylan from now on.
We're real professionals, guys.
Yeah, I'm gonna call him Dylan.
I'm just gonna call him Carl Weathers.
Let's call him Apollo.
Yeah. I think he's safe. Obviously, Grogu's safe. I think we're not going to see Mayfeld again this season. But I think Fennec's probably going to be safe, but she'll eventually part ways with them. I think Moff Gideon is going to die. I think we're going to
really?
We're going to culminate with the defeat of Moff Gideon, and they're going to get they're going to become in possession of the Darksaber as a result. It's because I'm thinking about what happened with Grogu when he's like, have you seen one of these before? And like Grogu's reaching out for it. I think that kind of was foreshadowing to some degree the likelihood that they're going to come in possession of the Darksaber at some point. And those are that's my tinfoil hats.
See, I kind of agree with you about maybe Fett. I think Kara is done. I think she's going to go out in the end of the season. If they take out Gideon, which is a big one because he's a massive, very good actor to have in so sparingly, I think he might be the bad guy that's going to go into season 3, and then he might get his comeuppance.
That's just my theory. So
I think the Darksaber, if they get it back, will go straight to Bo-Katan. Yeah. As it's rightfully hers.
But with that being said, it's probably a good time to wrap it up. So I'll let you do the outro here.
Well, if you enjoyed what you see, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button and the bell icon for future notifications. Leave a comment in all our videos. We've got a couple on the channel now. We'd like to hear from you all. And Michael, where can they follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter. It's scrolling down below. My handle is @_MTJDisorder. I also have a Twitch account, which is the same handle. It's twitch.tv/MTJDisorder, no underscore. And that's where you can find me.
I really got to get some of this following stuff sorted out, Anna.
Get on the social media. We got to get an Instagram set up. Everybody's using an Instagram and a chat.
Then that's for this week then, to do this week. TokTik and the old YouTubes.
And LinkedIn and OnlyFans.
Yes. Star Wars OnlyFans. All right, cool. Well, been a good chat, man.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Thanks for the discussion. And until next time, we'll roll the music.
Have a good one.